warning signs, on law enforcement responses, on, why would people decide to or not decide to access protection orders and different things like that. So it really triggered just a broad-ranging conversation that on July 3rd, I would have had no idea that I would spend the whole summer focused on that.
Sure. You've got to reprioritize midstream constantly, and then reprioritize within that as well, very quickly. Is there any part of you that's a little relieved from some stress? Obviously, we're going to ask you what's next in life. What are you going to be doing? But to just maybe literally, figuratively, just catch your breath.
So, I will say this: we have an on-call rotation. So after hours, myself and then the deputies are on a revolving list. As a state's attorney, though, you're always on call. Mm-hmm. And what I found is, if it's something really serious or political, or it's a homicide or a missing person, law enforcement's not going to call a deputy, even if it's a great deputy or an experienced one. They're going to call, the person where the buck stops. That's the state's attorney. And, that constant degree of being on call is stressful. I mean, every night I sort of go to bed wondering if the phone's going to ring. And I joked with my wife. We took a nice walk yesterday afternoon with the dog, and I said, today's my official last day as being on call. It was my, turn in the rotation. And, and so there is that. There's a lot of pressure because the needs and demands of public safety never stop. And so in that sense, it will be a relief to not maybe be at the beck and call of crisis that I can't control at each moment. So in that way, it's a relief. But at the same time, it's also, I'm also sad because obviously I, made the decision to run for higher office and not, try to run for re-election. And so in many ways, I feel like I'm leaving this role, sort of at the top of my game of, very comfortable with relationships in the community, comfortable in court, had a great, staff and team assembled. So things were really, moving along, well. So as much as there's the relief of not having stress anymore in the job, there's also this sort of melancholy feeling of leaving before I probably got everything I wanted to get done with this job done.
You genuinely seem and have always seemed that you truly are what you do, and that you love what you do. You're so engaged. Does that concern you in any way? That what am I going to do next, where I'm this much invested in my heart? Is there anything else that I could possibly enjoy as much?
Yeah, well, to sort of dovetail with the end of your last question, I haven't really determined what is ahead for me. I've got some great opportunities and options out there that I'm sort of waiting to see what plays out, but. In the interim, I'm certainly hoping for maybe a week or two to catch my breath. There's a number of walls that need painting at home, a lot of projects around the house that have been neglected for quite a while, and as you can probably surmise from my personality, I don't do well just sitting around.
Right.
So
the to-do list will shrink.
Yes, it will.
That's what he's telling us.
Will we go on vacation here? Are we going to get the hell out of here and get to put some toes in the sand at some point?
Probably not yet. It's school year, and I don't want to leave wife and kids behind.
And he just barely got to ski.
Yeah.
Yes.
Finally.
I think they'd be a little cranky if I, took a flight to the Alps and went skiing again over there or something without them. But
so what will you do? I mean, Raylene and I keep hearing that you're going to buy Harry's hardware store, and there's that rumor that's flying around.
Well, my wife is already the half owner of it, and she's a great partner, but I don't want to be her business partner.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're not going to buy her out?
No. No, she's got that well under control.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what will you do? I mean, what's come March, April, where will you be?
Well, that's almost the exciting thing, and every change comes opportunity. So, the one thing I'm really committed to is I do want to stay in public service in one way or the other. I've just never had the huge drive to be, hang my shingle and run my own firm. Mm-hmm. a number of people have joked here, oh, you should just go be a defense counsel. And, I do love court, but I don't know that's where my, passion is at the moment. But there's a lot of, there's always opportunities and things changing in the nonprofit industry and of course, in state government and state service. So I'm approaching the next few years with, the idea that it doesn't have to be forever. Just as much as I had a term here that, was filling out someone else's term and then my term for 4 years, it was, it was a great run. And I'd be looking, whatever comes next, maybe it'll be longer than that, but I'm going into at least, the mindset that it doesn't have to be forever, and catching my breath someplace and just doing good work for, a few years and then moving on to whatever the next big thing is an option.
Sure.
So that could mean that there would possibly be a run for something in the future.
Yeah.
Politically, maybe?
I'm not, maybe, but that's.
I still have my sign. We can
what's
just
up
change what it says.
Yeah, what's up with your sign, Raylene? What's up with the
Well,
Rory
I have
sign?
my Rory sign.
Yeah.
And I have my Bridget sign as well. And then I have another sign that was made for me that says, "See what you didn't do, dumbass."
Ah! Come on, we're going to start making Rory blush. We don't want to do that.
I can't help it. I can't help it.
Politics is a messy game, and if
of course
unfortunately, I wish lawn signs could vote because man, did we carpet bomb up and down the state.
Yes.
Couldn't throw a rock on Route 7 without hitting one of my signs for a while.
Yeah, exactly. But you serve. How else do you serve right now? What are you on the town council, the school board?
School board, yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, I'm currently the chair of the Cabot School Board, which is always a joy coming into budget season. Makes me a very popular person in the community.
Right.
Question here.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice how we can advocate for a young lady that's petitioning for a new playground in Cabot? The children need and deserve it. Do you? This comment coming in.
Yeah.
I will volunteer to build it. What? Do you know anything about this?
I do. So, my son is actually a member of the 3-4 classroom, and let me back up. So, one thing that a lot of people don't know or may not know about Cabot School is going back in the post-Act 46 period, and even before that, project-based learning has always been a huge part of how education is done. And it's what makes a small, one of the last small K-12 legacy schools left in the state special. There's immense flexibility of what you can do with curriculum and make it work because you have small class sizes, because there's a lot of continuity of teachers and with students and those relationships. So historically, everyone viewed project-based learning as being this thing you do with like older kids, middle school and high school. And to put it in some context, one of the ones I like to talk about of a project-based studio that's in high school is the science of sound, appropriate with all these microphones and everything around. So you can look at it almost being an interdisciplinary type of class where it's not just a science teacher or a music teacher or English teacher, but the three of them combining into a studio and looking at these different elements. So there was discussion of, physics, the physics of sound. There's discussion of music history and literature as part of that. And then finally, there was a design tech element of making instruments and then, scoring an original production and then presenting it to the community. So that was a whole class where it's not just a function of, physics of frequency and waves and all that, which, is important information, but it's contextualized by now. Think about taking that concept, putting it into something people enjoy, music, combine it with, some sort of value of communicating, a message and then make it and produce it. So I use that as the background to say that, project-based learning is not just for older students, it's also younger. So our 3-4 grade and below are no stranger to this. And one of the projects they've worked on was designing a natural playscape for the school. And as background, Cabot School had a community-driven and built playground that had run its service life, and it sort of went belly up at the most inopportune time. The insurers came on, and right during COVID, when we needed to have outdoor space, and said, "This is just beyond economical repair, and that it's a safety hazard." So the whole big sprawling play structure got torn down. And so we've gone 3 years without having, a playground on the campus that's accessible to young learners. And we would have loved to have put that, squeezed it into a budget, but Cabot voters have been pretty stingy in terms of what they're willing to, support. And we've had a number of budgets fail and then revotes. And, the board just never felt that we could really justify putting $60,000 to $100,000 extra spending in, given that we're having to make hard decisions about whether to retain core educators and instructors. So, all that being said, the 3-4 teaching team, along with their students, worked with the principal. The principal helped secure some grant funding to have someone come and do a design. And the design that they came up with was, a consultant, and it was really based on what the students wanted. So they quickly rejected. They didn't want, the typical plastic and metal thing you plant down, which are great, but that wasn't what they wanted. And so the design that they've come up with is a natural playscape. So it has like a climbing tower, a rock climbing wall, a lot of using the natural terrain on the campus. There's like a thinking cave as one of the things that they're trying to put on. And then just a lot of, for lack of a better term, modular and natural components. And, that fits with the whole aesthetic of the campus. It's rural. It's, right by the outdoor classroom and woods. So they've taken lead on that. They've now also taken lead on trying to raise funds. So there's a goal of the end price, if there's no in-kind contributions from, labor from people in the community or from, people supplying wood or the boulders or any of the other things that are going into it, it would top out at about $100,000. The belief is that it comes down substantially from that, given how many commitments there seem to be or willingness of people with earth movers and excavators to do some of the legwork. That said, right now the classroom has organized fundraising, so they had a GoFundMe page, which has been a success. There are some really generous local businesses and persons who have donated as well, and I think that there was an effort by someone in the community to put a ballot item on the town budget vote of whether the town should contribute, and we also solicited the select board for whether there would be a contribution from ARPA funds. So the select board generously decided to donate $5,000 towards that, since it's a community resource.
I was going to ask you that if any ARPA funds would go into that. Yeah. So
I guess the really exciting thing is, so far, those 3rd and 4th graders, through their marketing and dogged tugging at the shirts of adults, have already raised over $40,000.
That's amazing. That's awesome. That is awesome.
So that's a testament to their work and creativity, and really the generosity of people in our our community. And so I imagine they're going to get there. I think the principal already indicated that that's more than enough to get ground break and get some things going in the spring once the ground is thawed. I'm sure if you can save a buck or two here and there with, as you mentioned, there's some volunteers that have stepped forward to move some earth. Dwayne Tucker says he's one of them. He's in line. So if you need some big equipment in there, you'll save a buck here and there, which is important. This is not going to be an easy project, so we all hands on deck. We need people to step up. Well, that's the best part of being in a small community is that one person can make a big difference, and and I think there's an inherent sense of pride that comes when it's something that the community generates rather than a contractor just comes in and it appears. Absolutely, and I would love to. I'll say this now. I know Raylene would agree with me. I'd love to get some of these kids on the air here and that would be cool, and help out with their fundraising. I actually worked at Cabot years ago in the early 90s, and it was one of my most favorite places to work. Yeah, just the model of it, the different buildings, and the moving from building to building, the campus itself, the community. Sure, I really loved it there. I was at Twinfield first, then Cabot. And then I went back to Twinfield. They sent me back to Twinfield. What is it? Route 215, I think, that goes through there. Is that what it is? What a beautiful town to cruise through.
And I don't know about you. I don't know. Maybe I've just lived under a rock for the last 20 years or something. But it just seems lately there's so much going on there all the time. I'm always posting something that's going on in Cabot.
You guys used to do like a sugar on snow, breakfast stuff. Anson Tebbets is up there, of course.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and you had the poster up behind me before of Cabot's 12th night. So Cabot Arts has been an amazing organization. Dana Robinson is really the
Dana was just in here.
Yeah. Dana is a good friend in town and does so much to bring that sense of vitality. And it's amazing how many artists and musicians there are hiding in the hills of Cabot.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We shake them out well. Chad Hollister's one of many who just is real partial to Cabot. But talking about driving through Cabot, what a beautiful ride on the motorcycle. But slow the hell down, man, and watch out because you come around the corner and could be some cows in the road. Yeah. Go easy.
Cows, kids, or cyclists.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Yes, very true. Raylene, what questions do you have for Rory?
I think you've already asked them. I mean, I wanted to know where the court stood at this time, and I had no doubt in my mind that it would be in a good spot, that he would be pushing to get things that way.
Right
exactly.
And his team, amazing team.
Yes.
I loved having Alfonso in here.
Yes, and Bridget, and who else have we've been very lucky, and I hope that can continue. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's an important bridge to keep and build, and I hope that can continue, but I have my concerns about that, and so
I think many, fair to say, I think many do. I mean, I've heard the concerns. You've heard them, but because you've done a great job, and let's say it like it is. You've got some, Michelle's got some big shoes to fill. She's got her work cut out for her.
I believe that wholeheartedly. So.
She also has the opportunity. So, I mean, everybody, I will be first to say that, fresh perspective can sometimes be helpful. And in many ways, you can be looked at as bad that a lot of, experienced deputies have left, but it's also then an opportunity to build a team that, shares her vision and that she can, mentor and train in the same way I did. And as you mentioned, part of that team was just everyone working well together and having trust and again, that cycle of mentorship. And I'll just bring home on this. And I've been lucky again that Kristen, being as experienced as she is, has always been quick to give advice or insight and help. Bridget, when she came on board, was seasoned as a defense counsel and brought that perspective along with life experience. And she really helped pass down and mentor. So you may remember Tim Wieters-Dumont was part of my office, and Ashley Angel was another deputy. They both have moved on. But they had the benefit of not just getting input from me about how to be professional and how to do the work, but they had Kristen, they had Bridget, and they had Alfonso. And passing on that knowledge, and then the lunchroom conversation about how to deal with certain problems or address just issues and cases was immensely helpful. And that, those exchanges, as informal as they were just as important as going and sitting at a organized training for a week somewhere, because we all learn from each other.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, it may have been off the air, that you've had a chance to get out and ski.
Yeah.
Where'd you ski?
So I was lamenting that yesterday was the latest I've ever made it out.
Wow.
The nasty climate that we've had this winter. It's just been icy and rain and not great. And it's not getting any cheaper to ski either. So now when fork out the money, want to make sure you get a good day out of it. But Joanna and my boys and I went up to Burke.
Wow.
Yesterday.
Good mountain. Great mountain. How old are the kids?
They are 9 and 13.
That's a handful. 2 boys.
You know what, though? I think we're past that point where I think younger boys are really difficult. And now I'm watching all my friends who had, 2 girls at home that are reaching teenage years. It's a complete
you're
flip
good.
where they're making up for the, all the angst and craziness we had to deal with from especially about age 4 to about 8.
Yeah. What about home? You, I don't know how many acres you've got, but a lot of farmland.
Well, so we actually, no, our house is really, pretty small plot of land in the village of Cabot, but I'm fortunate to have a really great friend who has, about a 250 or so acre, farm, and that's really an oasis for us to get out there. So I keep and maintain some cattle up there, some sheep, and then we also help out haying and sugaring with him in the off season. And then by virtue of being friends and being up there, we get the huge advantage of beautiful walks on the land, cross country skiing up there.
Wow,
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
it is.
Do you have any chickens?
So we used to. Ermin took care of them.
Okay, who's that?
No, just the animal and Ermin.
Yes,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
all right.
Pretty traumatic. My wife walked in once when they were being attacked, and
Oh, no.
yeah, not one of our favorite memories on the farm.
The price of eggs right now, my God, 60% nationwide right now is up 60%, and we're trying to find out where the price gouging is coming from. What's going on here? My God.
I'm I'm not a U.S. rep or senator or anything like that, but
I got to get answered.
when you take, if you take a look at it, this ag policy, we get it all wrong. We subsidize the hell out of these large multinational corporations to the detriment of local family farms. And why is there a surge in egg prices? Well, because there's been a surge in fuel prices because the base cost of production and moving things state to state has gone up, whether it's feed to get to the chickens or whether it's the eggs coming back to us.
Right.
And, that's why I think that's a large part of why we're paying for it. And then inflation on top of that, maybe a little bit of price gouging mixed in there too. But, this idea of mass production far away from where the consumers are works great when things are cheap.
Yeah.
As soon as it's expensive, then those problems compound.
And Hillary just had a great point here, the avian flu, which we keep hearing about too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I've been trying to watch in the news about that. I think a few farms in Vermont have been worried about it or impacted, but certainly I've heard of huge flock losses in places that have a lot of production, like New Jersey and then out in Kentucky, Indiana.
what are these last 8 days going to look like for you? Do you have any media opportunities? Who's going to shove a mic in your face?
I don't really know. I mean, I always have people calling here and there about different issues. I have a really jam-packed court schedule personally, and then just trying to make sure that I get I want to make sure that my desk is totally clean, no stray closeout cases, no, really no surprises for Michelle on our first day, and it's going to take a lot of work to get that done. But in terms of making the rounds, I do plan to reach out and visit and have kind of a final session with different chiefs of police and link up with different law enforcement friends, partners. I've been meaning to get over and have lunch or coffee with Carol and Diane at Circle. I've had so many great experiences with the people who are part of this big justice ecosystem. So a lot of it just sort of saying goodbye and closing things out.
You're going to go home and on your last day put your slippers on and have a shot of whiskey?
Well, I probably would do that anyway, but
Right.
I think what I've had to come to grips with, as I said before, it's a little bit melancholy to be leaving where I feel like I'm at the top of the game and where things are going really well.
Yeah.
And yet, I think I probably do need to slow down and then just take stock and say that it's been a really great 5 years and I wouldn't have done things differently. And and sort of celebrate the closure of that, even if it means there's more uncertainty in the future.
Is there one particular case where you are really going to be paying attention to on how it is handled, how it is dealt with, that you that's just going to perk your ears up a little bit more than any others?
Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, I always have to be careful about
course.
making, comments about open cases. So I'll probably avoid that. But there's the immediate and probably obvious classic cases that stand out are child exploitation cases.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them out there, more than people realize. We've had some really significant cases come in, and I think why there's a greater degree of attachment is sitting and watching a forensic interview where a child's disclosing something horrible that's happened. You can't help but get some degree of attachment to the story and what's going on, and care about really the outcome. And especially because, not to say that cases involving adult victims aren't equally as important, but, an adult victim can process, can understand, and weigh or have the rational thought about what the outcome is, whether they want to go to trial or not. That's so much trickier with, a case involving children. So just as a class, I think of the SIU case, Special Investigative Unit cases that are, going to be left behind. Those are ones where I will be reading the Times-Argus to see, what happens. The other one is not as obvious, and I've been slowly trying to set the table for, really to, I think, highlight some issues with our mental health system and its interface with the criminal justice system. Going back 6 years ago, actually, even before I was the state's attorney, 7 years ago, maybe even, I worked with then defense counsel, and she's still defense counsel, but she used to be the public defender, Amanda Kitchen. We created something called the Behavioral Health Accountability Program, which was trying to create sort of a mental health treatment court without it being a full treatment court, because we didn't have a grant fund or any of that other stuff there. But we were trying to use existing structures within corrections and within the community to help people who had this intersection of mental health with their criminal conduct. We had a few people go through that, and they were all successful, which was great, but it was very limited. And unfortunately, when I left the office in 2017 for the AG's office, that program more or less withered and wasn't continued. That's a little bit different class of what I'm talking about, where right now we have a number of cases where we have defendants who engaged in really devastating behavior or really dangerous behavior who are not competent to stand trial. And for whatever reason, the Department of Mental Health has been increasingly reluctant to take on those individuals, and either subject to an order of hospitalization where they go and have inpatient treatment, or more commonly, even an order of non-hospitalization where there's a 90-day order that person has to interface, interact, and receive services from a designated agency, whether it's Washington County or, if they're going to live someplace else, whatever, Howard Center in Chittenden County, whatever. The idea being that there's some recourse that either puts them on a path towards regaining competency and then being eventually potentially held accountable, or alternatively, at least doing something to mitigate the risk that they pose to the community. And I've been alarmed to see a really significant change in posture from the department in the last year or so, where increasingly they're saying no and then referring the case out to conflict counsel, and we're having to litigate through this. And there's a lot of disadvantages for the state or for a prosecutor, because we don't have our own stable of experts that are just available to go and do these evaluations or follow up. We don't have immediate access to someone's complete mental health history or records. So at the end of the day, we're left with, they can't be prosecuted, and then they're not going to be, there's nothing to compel them to engage in any kind of mental health treatment or anything that either, again, puts them on a path to regaining competency or mitigates risk. So it leaves, in my mind, this just void of unmitigated public safety risk. And we have a number of cases right now where that is frightening. Yeah, it is. Wow. And that's out there. And I won't be in a position to see that through, but I've tried to set the table to really get some answers from the department on those cases, and to maybe litigate some of the fringes of what the court is looking at, of whether someone is a person in need of treatment. Particular questions: what is the timing of that? Was it at the time the offense is committed? Is it just limited to right now? What what do you do if you have, for example, someone who commits an aggravated assault, let's say by stabbing someone, and then is held in jail? Well, if there were competency issues at that time, and need for treatment probably at that time, just because they've not committed any new crimes because they've been incarcerated, does that mean that they're no longer a risk to self or others? And you can see how, I don't want to get into the, too deep into the weeds of the law here, but you can see the friction there. And I think it's, rather facetious to say, well, they haven't stabbed anybody in 9 months, so I think we're good to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Being proactive is so critical here.
And mental health is a huge challenge in all respects, not just the legal system right now. There's a huge push to get the funding that's needed and the services that are needed that we lack here greatly.
Mental health was an issue before COVID. I mean, and then throw COVID in the mix. I mean, my God, we're all walking around half batshit crazy. I mean, this
just half, JD. You could be more generous.
Yeah.
Seriously, though, I mean, we talk about mental health all the time, and just what's happened to kids, to teachers, to first responders, to business owners. I don't care who the hell you are. You've been affected in some way, directly, indirectly, from something that is traveling back to COVID in some way.
Well, and it's a perfect storm in many ways because, one thing I see, and I have friends who are trying to get kids into services, and just to go see a counselor can sometimes be a 6-month wait list to get in. And, that's the problem, the immediacy. I mean, we would never in a million years think if someone had, was a slash on their arm and was bleeding, we wouldn't say, come back in 6 months.
Or call us from the parking lot in the urgent care, and we'll be out in 20 minutes to get you.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
And I think as this, we talk about court backlog, think about how the impact of backlog of people seeking services and what that's doing to agencies that are already struggling to hire, like Washington County. The rate of potential risk for burnout and those people who are holding the line being overwhelmed increases every day that we go on. And it's not just, money, it's also the people, the space, the time, and continuity. And unlike the example of, patching up, stitching an arm and healing, the process of, addressing mental health issues isn't just a 1-2 counseling or, throwing pills at somebody. It's long term. And that's what makes it so difficult with a really nasty and broken healthcare system.
Yeah, I mean, just the dentist. Gosh, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make that day. I may have to cancel or postpone. Well, we can get you on the calendar for 5 years from now. My God, I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It is.
Yeah, and the comment here that if you can. If you're affected by this, your mental health has taken a hit, and you're a less than perfect parent or spouse or what have you, and if you're able to get through that stress without getting into drug or alcohol use, there's such an uptick in that. That just does nothing but throw gas on the fire. But if you can get through these stressful times without getting involved with drugs and booze, I mean, you're almost a step ahead.
Yeah, well, the realities of individuals deciding to self-medicate is
right there,
all over the place. Yeah,
right
and then that leads to how many other things? Employment issues, home issues, criminal issues. I mean, there's a lot that comes from that breakdown. So, I think a lot of political leaders are aware of it, and everyone talks a big game about preventative health care and wellness, and yet we have a long way to go.
Right.
We really do.
Yeah.
We really do.
We have a long way to go in many things.
Yes, we do.
We really do.
Yes, we do. Any final questions for Rory, and any closing comments from Rory?
The only I don't have a question. I just will say that I hope that you stay connected with us and keep us posted what you're up to, and come back and
chew the fat with us.
Yeah.
I'll be around. I'm not leaving Cabot anytime soon.
All right. Any closing comments? I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here in a short period of time, but
I guess I'll just close with two things. I really just appreciate being here, your support, and engagement throughout throughout the years now, really. And it's always a pleasure to come and have, sort of an unscripted way to just talk about things going on. And so I really appreciate the role that both of you play in keeping the community aware of just what is going on beyond, the surface level. So, and obviously the support, the signs are appreciated. And I think I'm going to be in debt for a long time to the people who, stepped up and supported me in my ambition this past summer. And, the final note I'll leave on, since we're really here about, transitions and the end of my time as state's attorney, is just how appreciative I am of having the opportunity to serve for 5 years. And it's been, as you mentioned earlier, it's been a roller coaster of ups and downs. Coming into office was chaos. COVID was, a swinging curveball. And, at the end of the day, I hope that, I hope that this time period will be remembered as, a good period for public safety, for the justice system. And I just am appreciative I've had the opportunity to serve in this way.
On behalf of Washington County and everyone, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
We love you. We hope to see you again soon, Rory. Very
Thank
much.
you.